Howdy, howdy, and welcome to episode 33 of the Back of the End Zone podcast. I'm Josh Reisig here with Bryant Koleski, and man, what a week in college football. There's some craziness this week, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we'll get into that for sure.
Got some coaching changes already starting to occur. Jimbo Fisher has been ousted at A&M. $76 million not to coach. That's insane. We'll get into that. Zach Arnett at Mississippi State has been fired. UCLA has announced that they're going to part ways with Chip Kelly at the end of the season. That's starting to get to that time of year where the coaching carousel is about to begin, and we'll get into that and much more.
And and some other things too, like some teams proving it this weekend too. Teams that were already proven in the top four, but Georgia getting it done against Ole Miss, Michigan getting it done at Beaver Stadium.
Bama taking Kentucky to the woodshed.
Exactly.
SEC championship is set.
Exactly.
It'll be Bama and Georgia for the fourth time in like the last decade. Bama's 3-0 all time against Georgia in the SEC championship.
So, we'll see what comes out of that. But then also some interesting stuff going on in the Pac-12, looking at Oregon State and Washington State, the two remaining teams left in the Pac-12 for next season.
The Pac-2.
The Pac-2.
Tupac.
Somehow got rights, and they now technically own the Pac-12. We'll get into that a little bit later, too, a little bit more in depth. And then we also have our college football pick'em segment for Week 12. Got some, and we have a very interesting slate this week because there's some games that we definitely could have picked. We chose not to.
This is cupcake weekend for a lot of teams. Obviously, Bama, Florida State, Ohio State, if you want to call Minnesota a cupcake, Michigan, if you want to call Maryland a cupcake. No,
but there are some possible upsets in some of our slates.
In the midst of all the cupcakes, there are some good games going on this weekend.
Yeah, no, most definitely, and we'll get right into that as well. But, man, let's get right into it with segment one. All right, before we dive right in to the madness that's kind of going on around with coaches being fired and buyouts and all this different kinds of nonsense.
More conference stuff going on.
Yeah, we would like to thank our sponsors, though, for sponsoring this between 251 Poolworks and Now Fitness. 251 Poolworks is a family-owned and operated business. They offer pool cleaning, maintenance, and repair, and they serve the greater Mobile, Baldwin County, and Pensacola areas. And if you're needing any monthly pool cleaning service and or repair, give them a call at 251-978-7736 for the Pool Works. Can't thank them enough, and we also can't thank Now Fitness enough.
Yep, and Now Fitness is a gym and fitness center based in Groveville, Alabama. They do personal training, group sessions with CrossFit, and other workouts, and they help local athletes train and get in their best shape. Call 251-269-3065 for more. So, let's get into it, man.
Yeah, let's get right into it. We were both talking about this before getting into it, but starting off with Jimbo Fisher, man.
He is out at Texas A&M. I think they finally the board of trustees at Texas A&M, or the board of, whoever decides, who makes the decisions. They decided this before the Mississippi State game. They went in the Starkville, they beat Starkville, or they beat Mississippi State 51-10, and so it was unusual to see that they were firing him after a big win. But Texas A&M is coughing up $76 million for him not to coach. Right now, the best job in America is a fired college football coach.
And that makes it the record, too, of all Power 5 schools of any coach ever being fired. That is the largest buyout that has ever happened of any college football coach that was ever fired. And it's actually more than triple, the highest known coaching contract buyout at a public school. And the most recent one that was closest to that was Gus Malzahn, his buyout in 2020 at Auburn, which was $21.7 million. Yeah. And you think that's $76 million.
He's to not coach, too. Like Texas A&M, hire me, man. I'll take $76 million to run your program into the ground. I don't care. If you want me to tank, I will do it. But man, other than I just don't know. The Texas A&M era, or the Jimbo Fisher era at A&M was just fell short every year. And years that they were really good, and you felt like they should have been right there with Bama or LSU for the SEC West. And the year that they beat Bama, you thought, okay, this is A&M's year. They could potentially make a run at the SEC West. But since they've been in the SEC, they've never had They've never won they've still never won the West. They've still never been to a conference championship game, and Mizzou has been to more than them, and that's just crazy to think about. But they just fell short every year, and I think Texas A&M they deserve more than a lot. I mean, if you talk about a fan base that deserves to be able to win and have a winning program, it's A&M fans. They are very passionate. We always joke around about like, oh, they're a cult, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they care. They are as passionate as any fan base out there. They love the university. They love the Texas A&M Aggies. They support their program. I mean, all the resources are there for the next coach, whoever they hire, to go in there and succeed.
And that's what I wanted to talk about too, because Texas A&M for the class of 2024 is they have a top 10 recruiting class right now.
And they still have the pieces from the number 1 recruiting class that they had 2 years ago.
Exactly. And I mean, they're still sitting right at 10 currently. And one of the big things about this too is like you look at that recruiting class, Cameron Coleman, the biggest name on that list, 5-star wide receiver, number 1 in the state of Alabama and number 8 nationally.
Yeah, but there's a lot of rumblings about him flipping to Auburn.
Exactly. There is a lot of rumblings, obviously from Phoenix City, Alabama, just on the border of Georgia there. And the thing about this is he verbally said right after the Jimbo firing that he was still committed to Texas A&M.
But he was going to look at other options.
But his recruitment is still open, and he's still going to browse around. And I don't think that he sticks with Texas A&M.
I don't either. I think Auburn ends up flipping him. But I mean, still though, whoever Texas A&M hires next, and I've talked to people about it, and it's if I were A&M, and disregard what you think about him as a person, it should be Urban Meyer. If Urban Meyer was to come out of coaching, there is no better spot right now than Texas A&M. You would have the resources. I mean, Texas A&M has a lot of money. Obviously, they have a lot of money. They're spending $76 million on Jimbo not to coach. They have the recruiting resources. They have the facilities. They have the stadium. They have the passionate fan base. They have the university. And the location too. I mean, College Station's is a great place. If I were at Texas A&M, my top target would be Urban Meyer. If not, I would, and I've said this on social media, I would look to Kyle Whittingham in Utah. He's probably not going to leave Utah, but I would at least give him a call.
The thing is, I don't see either of those situations panning out at all. I don't know who they're going to get at this point, but I don't see.
The most likely option right now is probably Mike Elko from Duke. He was formerly the defensive coordinator at A&M, so I could see them, bringing him home. But man, I think for me it would be Urban Meyer. Just like I said, forget what you think about him as a person. Urban Meyer would be my top choice. I mean, the guy knows how to win.
The thing is, he would be any school's top choice right now. But the crazy thing to me about this whole situation is that since 2022, ESPN released an article that over $146 million has been in buyouts from coaches fired in the Power 5. And that goes to list, obviously, Jimbo, but you've got Brian Harsin last year with
Auburn's got two. Yeah. Auburn's paying 2 buyouts right now.
Yeah, 2 buyouts between Brian Harsin and Malzahn, and $15.5 million to Brian Harsin. Scott Frost from Nebraska last year as well, $15 million. Got Geoff Collins from Georgia Tech last year as well, $11.4. Paul Chris from Wisconsin last year, $11 million. And like literally within the last year and a half, you're thinking $146 million in buyouts to coaches, which is including also $4 million to Zach Arnett at Mississippi State. Yeah. Obviously, Mississippi State not necessarily starting off the year how they wanted to. 4-6, not a horrible year. And Zach Arnett filled the role of the unfortunate passing of Mike Leach. So that kind of goes into the effect of why Mississippi State is firing him, because I don't think they necessarily wanted to stick with Arnett in the first place.
Yeah, I think, and it's a tough situation that Zach Arnett came into. Obviously, the passing of Mike Leach threw everybody in Starkville for a loop. It was not. It came as a surprise to everybody. It was something that was pretty much sudden. And so Zach Arnett was given the unfortunate role of trying to fill that void, trying to help the university move forward. There's a lot of mourning going on. It was hard to try and search for a coach during that time. So they promoted Zach Arnett. Now you kind of move on from Zach Arnett. The Mike Leach era at Mississippi State is now over. Now you get to kind of have a fresh start with a fresh coach.
And the thing about the situation, too, is one of the main reasons why this happened as well. So you think Mike Leach passed away, and then right after Mike Leach passed away, Arnett was Mississippi State's defensive coordinator, so obviously he got the role. They won their bowl game over Illinois, got a big win there, but then obviously this year 1-6 in SEC play, not what you want to see at all. But it also goes into effect that less than a month after Arnett was hired for that head coaching job, Mississippi State got a brand new athletic director. And that was the other thing too, because the athletic director that they had that promoted Arnett wanted Arnett, but then obviously Mississippi State goes and gets a new athletic director right after that, which plays into effect too, because this new athletic director obviously wasn't wanting to ride with Zach Arnett to begin with.
Probably not, but I mean, you had to, considering the circumstances, you had to try and you probably knew it wasn't going to be that successful of a year. But like I said, it was just a tough situation all around. Now, for coaches that could potentially fill that void at Mississippi State, I like. And there's been rumors going around about Jamie Chadwell from Liberty, who was formerly the coach at Coastal Carolina. There was a meme going out around Monday or Tuesday about him in Starkville, and like it showed his location underneath one of his posts, but it was a fake. It was
I saw it too. I believed it, but I mean I didn't do enough.
I believed it at first too, but then it was fake. But Jamie Chadwell, I think, would be great for that role. There's also other names like Willie Fritz from Tulane. John Summerall is a name that's been thrown out around there from Troy. But you still got other guys. I mean, why not if UCLA's getting rid of Chip Kelly, why not take a look at bringing Chip Kelly to Starkville?
Yeah, or people are also saying Dan Mullen too, like formerly at Mississippi State when they had Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and I don't know about that one.
I mean, there's potential that he could come back just because of that former connection. Obviously, he's not even coaching right now after 2 years off out of leaving Florida.
Now there's a lot of people out there saying Deion for Texas A&M. Obviously, probably Deion wouldn't go to Mississippi State. And going back to A&M, Stephen A. said that Deion should take the Texas A&M job if it was offered to him. I don't think so. As much as I love Deion, I love what he's doing at Colorado. He needs to work on getting some offensive linemen because that's been the difference in their games this year is offensive line and defensive line. But it would rub me the wrong way if he was just up and willing to leave Colorado after one season.
I don't think he will.
I don't think he would either. I'm just saying it would rub me the wrong way because if I were Texas A&M and I was willing to hire Deion, but he's up and willing to just leave Colorado after one season, and granted, A&M's a much better location in Colorado, especially as of right now. But say in a year or two, Saban retires and the Alabama job comes open, and the first name everybody wants to point out to is Deion.
Deion, exactly.
If Deion was at A&M, would you feel comfortable if you were trying to
jump to Bama?
Jump to Bama.
Exactly. And that's the thing too. I don't think that Deion's willing to. I don't even think Deion's thinking about it right now.
I just don't think it's the move for him right now.
Yeah, and you think about what he's already building at Colorado. He's turning the program around. I still see him staying there for a couple of years.
Yeah,
at least 3 more years. He's already got the
recruits
that he wants.
At least till Shedeur and Shiloh are gone.
Yeah, but he's already got the recruits that he wants. He's got the players that he wants there, the transfers that are already there. And I mean, he's building the program that he wants there, and I don't see him up and leaving and then having all these other guys want to transfer with him. It doesn't make any sense to me. And obviously, Colorado's already been through that pain previously with Mel Tucker in the past when he said that literally, and Brandon McCartney's told me this story a million times, one night Mel Tucker, the night of this press conference, says that he's committed to Colorado, he's staying, and then literally that same night leaves for Michigan State, and karma hit him like a freaking truck. Yeah. I'd say that much. I mean,
and then also people were throwing around Dan Lanning, which would probably be a good move for Dan Lanning, but Dan Lanning is saying he's staying put at Oregon, which I don't see why he would leave Oregon. But I think Dan Lanning's holding out for the Bama job. That's just my opinion.
Dan Lanning already made a statement, too, saying that he's fully committed to Oregon. I mean, coaches will say that all they want.
Dan Lanning is holding out for when Saban retires. That's what I fully believe. But
he could be.
That's a conversation for another day. But, I mean, I think A&M will be fine with whoever they hire. Mississippi State's got some work to do. And then whatever happens with UCLA, I don't think firing Chip Kelly right before you go to the Big Ten is the move. But it's obviously what they want to do. They want a fresh start at coaching when they go in the Big Ten. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, staying in the SEC, though, switching subjects a little bit, the SEC championship game is set.
Yes,
Obviously,
sir.
got Bama
And Georgia.
Bama coming out of the West, Georgia coming out of the East.
The chosen one is back.
Yeah,
pretty much.
whatever you want to say, but
I'm joking.
Obviously, lots of interesting implications about this game because you look at it and there's a lot of different things that could happen. Obviously, if Bama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, I think they're automatically in the playoff.
I think they're in
but
too.
There's also some other interesting situations about that too because we were talking about it. Like, what if there is, say, a 13-0 Ohio State or Michigan, a 13-0 Florida State, and then a 13-0 Washington. I don't think Washington is going to finish the year 13-0. A lot of people are talking about Oregon beating them again. Oregon beating them if they were to play again in the Pac-12 championship.
It's definitely interesting, and Georgia's favored by 4 right now, rightfully so. They handled Ole Miss. Probably will handle Tennessee. This game, like the SEC championship game, comes down to me is will Bama be able to get pressure on Carson Beck? Not a lot of teams have been able to do it. Auburn was able to get to him a little bit, and it rattled him. When Carson Beck is under pressure, he is not very. He's not that. He's still good. He still have Brock Bowers. He'll still have Ladd McConkey.
He ain't Stetson Bennett though. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah, he's like a statue back there. But it's also because he hasn't had to move a lot. I think
and obviously you've got Milroe right now, who is so freaking hot, and I know you're all hyped up about that. Probably getting all excited.
And
right
the
now,
thing about this game is superstition superstition is real. Bama is 3-0 against Georgia all time in the SEC championship game. 7-0 all time in Mercedes-Benz Stadium where the game will be played, and so that gives me a little bit of hope. And it's a do or die game for Bama.
It is because
Bama's is at their best in these situations.
Yeah, they are at their best in these situations. And the other thing to look at too is since 2014, the initial college football playoff season, every SEC championship winner has gone on to the playoff. Yes, and I mean, and in the semifinal games, that SEC championship game winner is 8-1, and then in the college football playoff championship, they're 4-4. So I mean, the odds are.
It just means more.
The odds are possibly in the favor of the SEC in this last year of the college football playoff. But I mean, kind of steering away from that SEC championship game, there is an implication. I sent it to you on Instagram, Bryant, where
the last 4 champions have been at SEC.
Yes, but what I wanted to say was, taking a look at this last year of the 4-team playoff, there's a scenario where it could be the same playoff of the first year of the college football playoff in 2014.
The same teams from the first playoff get in.
Where it would be Ohio State, Bama, Oregon, and Florida State. And that surely could happen. Obviously, Oregon would need to win out, beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship if Washington makes it there, which more than likely they will. And I mean, it's a really interesting scenario, and that'd be fun to see.
That'd be fun to watch.
It would be fun to watch, kind of like a rematch. And it would be even crazier if it was the same implications with, like, say, Ohio State.
If it was the same games, too.
That's what I'm
Ohio
saying.
State versus Bama and
the
Florida
Sugar Bowl,
State. And Florida State.
And the Cotton Bowl. Yeah.
No, the Cotton Bowl, the Rose Bowl.
Florida
State and Oregon in the Rose Bowl.
I was saying for Ohio State and Bama. But, I mean, dude, it's
crazy. This game is going to be – I mean, it's still 3 weeks away. Bama's still got business to take care of in the Iron Bowl. Georgia's still got business to take care of with Tennessee and Georgia Tech. So there's still
Ohio State's still got stuff to take care of with Minnesota and TCUN. But the interesting thing is I think this year is different from last year. Again, straying away from the SEC championship, where the loser of the Ohio State-Michigan game, God forbid, hopefully it's not Ohio State, but the loser of that game probably will not make it in the playoff. Last year, obviously, Ohio State still made it in due to the fact that Utah beat USC in the Pac-12 championship. But I think this year it's the situation where you would have obviously like a 13-0 Michigan or Ohio State, and then the other team would be 11-1. And there's a lot of other teams that could potentially be 12-1 losing in their conference championship that would still probably get that bid over. But it depends how the College Football Playoff Committee sees it, which is also intriguing. But I mean,
but like I said, this SEC championship game has a lot of implications, not just for these two teams, but for what also goes on around them. Like you were talking about, if it comes down to Bama and Texas, there isn't now. Obviously, you got to value the head-to-head. I understand that. Texas beat Bama in week 2, 34-24. I know.
In Tuscaloosa.
Trust me, in Tuscaloosa, I know. It was week 2, though. Bama is not the same. You can argue that these two teams are not the same two teams that faced off in week 2. Texas
was at their peak week 2.
Texas, while they've been winning since the Oklahoma loss, they haven't won in the ways that they have wanted to. Bama is starting to catch their stride. Last 3 games they have beaten opponents by multiple scores. 49-21 win over Kentucky at Kentucky on the road. Now they got the Iron Bowl here. If Bama were to beat Auburn by 2 or 3 scores in Jordan-Hare, that would obviously be a huge momentum swing in Bama's way. And then beat the number 1 team in the nation, who's been dominant all season, who would have won 28 games straight up until this point. There is an argument to be made, and Kirk Herbstreit said this last night, or Tuesday during the selection show, that there is an argument to be made that Bama's resume is better than Texas.
Oh, easily.
And that Bama would have the best win out of the top 10 if they beat Georgia.
Yeah, and I mean, especially going back to the fact, dude, Texas still has business to get done between Iowa State this weekend and Texas Tech.
And then they got the Big 12 championship.
Exactly. And going back to exactly what you were kind of feeding off of is that Bama is a much better, right now looking at it from a college football playoff perspective, Texas does not look like a college football playoff team in the way that they've been playing the last couple of weeks, and Bama does.
And to be honest, and this is not me being biased here, this is not me being biased.
I think it's you being biased.
Probably is. Probably people will see it that way, but you cannot tell me that if Bama and Texas were a rematch right now, Bama would not come up on top, because
I think even if it's in Austin, Bama comes out on top. Either put them at a neutral site, put them anywhere. I think Bama comes out on top big.
I don't know about big.
I think,
but
big.
I do think it's a different game.
Completely different game. Even if Quinn Ewers is completely healthy, and I think he is now, but completely healthy, 100% healthy, I still think that Bama comes out on top, regardless.
Speaking of Quinn Ewers, he might be coming back next season.
Yeah, and he probably is. Which is interesting for that Arch Manning situation behind him. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors that he might want to transfer to Ole Miss.
And Auburn fans have been kind of kicking up the dust on that too. But I don't think he'd go to Auburn.
I think he would go to Ole Miss.
I think it would benefit. Not only I think this move benefits Texas, and I think it benefits both Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, because Malik. Okay, if Quinn Ewers comes back, Malik Murphy's probably the one that transfers.
Yep.
Okay, he's probably the one that's gone. I think it benefits Texas, one, because you'll have an experienced quarterback going into your first year of playing in the SEC. Because they'll host Georgia next year. I'm pretty sure they go on the road to Auburn or something like that. They're scheduled, and they play Michigan too. Texas and Michigan play next year. That schedule is not easy for Texas. Next year you'll have an experienced quarterback coming back that's losing some weapons in A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, probably Jonathan Brooks too if he doesn't come back. So you have an experienced quarterback coming on. Quinn Ewers in a loaded quarterback class. When you see, Caleb Williams and Drake May are obviously probably the first two. Michael Penix and Bo Nix have been emerging. Jayden Daniels has been emerging.
There's been talk about Michael Pratt even declaring or not. But, I mean, this is a quarterback-heavy draft where it wouldn't be in Quinn Ewers' favor.
Now, in 2025, it's not really clear who the quarterback leaders are right now. You would have to assume Carson Beck from Georgia. You'd have to assume probably Jalen Milroe from Bama.
Possibly Kyle McCord, too. But Kyle McCord's not even – he's not consistent enough at this point, too.
Yeah, and it would benefit Quinn Ewers. But also it would benefit – Arch Manning, because maybe, and our friend Jake Crane said this on his show, maybe Arch isn't ready yet. Maybe he's not ready to come in and be the starter in the first year of the SEC. Maybe he needs another year under, and history has shown the past 2 seasons, or last season and this season with Quinn Ewers, he's going to get hurt sometime in the season
where Arch Manning will be
Arch Manning would be the backup quarterback next year, and he would get his opportunity.
And I think it's better for – I honestly think it's a much better situation for Arch to stay in that situation. Yes. Like you look at it with my Ohio State bias, but you look – C.J. Stroud, his freshman year came in, and he was the backup to Justin Fields for 2 years, and then came in, and his 2 years that he played, he shined and was a Heisman finalist both years. And you look at him now in the league, and it's like I think it benefits Arch more to stay behind someone like Quinn Ewers.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with the scenario I always bring up, and he's kind of playing terrible right now and probably not going to be the quarterback in New England for very long, but Mac Jones was in the same recruiting class as Tua. went to Bama the same time as Tua, which was 2017. He was in the quarterback room with Jalen Hurts and Tua, and you see that picture of them in the locker room together smoking cigars. It's awesome because they're. But anyway, Mac waited his turn behind Jalen and Tua, and then in 2020, when Mac was supposed to be the starter, there was rumors that Bryce Young was going to come in and win the job as a freshman. That didn't happen. Mac Jones was a starting quarterback for Alabama that year and went on to have a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
So you really never know. And Jalen Milroe, for example, has waited 2 years behind Bryce Young, and now he's gotten his opportunity. Started off shaky. It took him getting benched in week 3 to kind of
Yep.
and now he's playing his best ball ever. On top of coming back next year, probably more than likely.
Yeah, easily. So we'll see how that situation pans out. But very quickly, before we jump into our Pick'em segment, interesting stuff shaking up recently this week in the Pac-12, Pac-2, whatever you want to call it. But Washington State and Oregon State landed a court victory against the Pac-12. There's still a lot of stuff that needs to go on because the Pac-12 now is going to appeal against both programs to try and get the Pac-12 back. But as of right now, a Washington County jury ruled in favor, giving the Washington State and Oregon State Pac-12 governance and assets, which is estimated over $400 million just this year alone. Well, like right when they get it between those two teams, meaning that these two teams would take over the television contracts, like the Rose Bowl, the NCAA basketball tournament units, everything where both of these schools would literally be governing the Pac-12, which means that they can do whatever the hell they want. They can recruit all these.
This is like a big FU to the other teams leaving.
Yeah, literally, it is a big FU, and like these schools are going to be getting so much more money out of it, obviously, which is huge. For
and I mean, I saw this the other day. They're probably not going to do this because it'd probably be asinine, but they could rule the other 10 teams ineligible for the Pac-12 championship in every sport, and it could be just them two playing for the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, which definitely wouldn't happen, but
it'd be
funny.
asinine.
It would be funny if they did do that. And I mean, it's just an interesting scenario too, because it's like, wow, the thing is, what are they going to do with this? I think obviously they're going to recruit teams.
Are they going to become the two-pack?
But it's like, who are they going to recruit? Do you think that they're going to take a lot of teams from the Mountain West and bring them over? Or do you like that's
maybe so? I mean, there's still a lot to be determined with what they're going to do with those two teams, what they're going to do with like having, I guess, governing powers. I don't know what their plan is. It just seems, and it seems to me they're doing this out of spite, just to make the other teams mad.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. It's tough to tell.
Dude, Oregon State and Washington State both getting money out of this.
And then there's a big development going on in the Sun Belt, where JMU is that last week they put in a request to NCAA to grant them a waiver from their 2-year ban since they're undefeated to participate in the Sun Belt Championship game and in a bowl game, which I think it should be granted. And there was reports coming out today this week from Pete Thamel and then Mobile's Craig Stevenson about that it could be granted, and that for both JMU and Jacksonville State, Jacksonville State's in the state of Alabama. Yeah. And they can play in their bowl games and in their conference championships.
The thing with me in this situation is I talked about it with Pat Greenwood, my boss at ESPN Plus, big name here at South Alabama. Everybody knows him, loves him. The thing with this situation is I don't think that the NCAA is going to grant them any clearance. I think JMU's still not going to be able to play in a bowl game or the conference championship. And it's because JMU kind of shot themselves in the foot with this situation, because most teams, when they get out of the FCS and go into the FBS, they get that 2-year bowl ban and like conference championship ban. And they usually, in those first 2 years, that football team still plays other FCS opponents. They'll sprinkle in a couple FBS opponents, and they'll still play like half FCS schedule to kind of get them acclimated. The thing is, JMU did it themselves, where they said, we're going to do a full FBS schedule and play a full Sun Belt schedule against these other teams, in hopes that the NCAA would just give them clearance, like, oh, you guys played a full FBS schedule, here you go, you're not going to get that anymore. But they did that to themselves, though. They made that decision thinking and hoping that the NCAA would give them clearance. And now it's not happening, where they kind of, I mean, either way, they're still having...
You never know. I mean, they won their side. They technically won the East last year in their first year in the Sun Belt, and they're doing it again while undefeated this year. I think they deserve a chance. I mean,
I think they do too, but per NCAA rules, I don't think they're going to make the exception due to the fact that they haven't in the past. And how the NCAA is.
Yeah. Well, but we'll see. I mean, I hope JMU gets their shot because they get a chance to beat Troy again, but that's just me.
Hey, we'll see.
But, I mean, who knows? Who knows?
It's an interesting situation, but that's going to close it out for our main segment, and now we're about to dive right into our Week 12 College Football Pick'em segment. Stay tuned. No guests this week, but we got some good games on the line.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. Welcome to our Week 12 College Football Pick'em segment. Unfortunately, this week we do not have a guest picker. It's happened before, but we have an interesting scenario next week for our Pick'em segment, especially with Rivalry Week. Got some big things in store for that, and some big things in store for the podcast in general.
Yeah.
But to start off Week 12 Pick'em, obviously we say it time and time again, we go to South Alabama. Usually we kind of save it for the end, but we're going to start off with the Marshall Thundering Herd, headed to Hancock Whitney Stadium in Mobile, Alabama, taking on South Alabama. Both of these teams are 5-5. Marshall's 2-4 in conference. South Alabama's 3-3 in conference. Coming off of a big win last week against Arkansas State.
Yep.
Defense for South Alabama absolutely dominated. Quentin Wilfon had a game. Carter Bradley played really well too. Obviously, LaDamian Webb had himself a game too, per usual. But the big thing for this game, obviously, it's a group of five. It's a group of five matchup in this game, which we tend to try and throw those in every once in a while. But the big thing for this game is that Marshall has lost 5 of their last 6 games. They haven't been able to get it done in conference at all. Had some all right non-conference wins before the season started. But as of right now, they suck. No offense to Marshall. No offense to, I guess it is offense to Marshall, but they just have not been able to get it done. I mean, last week they beat Georgia Southern, but before that, there was 3 weeks straight where they weren't able to score more than 10 points. And to me, I think this South Alabama offense is just very high-powered. They've been getting it done when they need to. Yes, they had the loss to Troy, the loss to Louisiana, the loss to JMU. But other than those teams, and those teams were better teams.
Yeah.
And other than that, obviously losing to Central Michigan as well, but I think South Alabama gets it done at home, making them bowl eligible for the 2nd straight year, which I know Bryant will get into, but that's never happened for South Alabama before.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's on the line for this for both these teams is bowl eligibility. Conference championships kind of out of reach. Troy's already clinched the West. Speaking of the East, there's some rumblings that JMU's waiver might get approved. And if that is the case, it would be JMU and Troy for the Sun Belt title. But both these teams still have something to play for. Going to a bowl game for a Group of 5 school is pretty much like the tip of the iceberg. And they have a shot of going to a really nice bowl game. And so, but I think I'm going to agree with you. I can't pick against South in this game. I want to see them go to another bowl game. I want to see them try and go and win a bowl game this year, depending on who their opponent might be. But I think I'm going to go with South here as well. Go Jags.
Yeah, most definitely. And now going into our second game of this slate, this is a very interesting game to me because we're looking at the Victory Bell game. You got unranked UCLA headed to the Coliseum playing unranked USC. And the first half of this season, both of these teams were ranked. And both of them had very high hopes for competing in the Pac-12 last year of the Pac-12, getting to that conference championship game. Obviously, UCLA lost at home last week to Arizona State 17-7. And UCLA also started Colin Schlee for the first time last week. No Dante Moore. They went with Colin Schlee. He was 11 for 18, 117 yards and a touchdown. But UCLA has 2 straight losses. They've lost 3 of the last 5. But then you look at USC, who's also 7-4, 5-3 in conference. USC has lost 4 of their last 5. You could argue that, yes, those 4 games were to Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame, and Utah. But the big thing is they've lost 4. They've lost 4 of their last 5. Have no defense at all. And the big thing for me is that just USC has not been able to get it done. Obviously, yes, they have no defense. Caleb Williams continues to cry like a little baby. We can get into that. But I mean, this is a rivalry game. It's at USC. This game really could go either way. I think both these teams are very equivalent. I think UCLA does have a much better defense than USC has, but UCLA right now doesn't really have much of an offense. They're having quarterback struggles. This is a very, very interesting game for me, but I think UCLA takes this one at the Coliseum on the road, taking out USC, making them 7-5 on the year, and jumping UCLA also to 7-5 on the year too.
Not so fast, my friend, as Coach Corso would say. This is potentially this is USC's last regular season of the game because they played the Week 0 game. So this is potentially the last time we could see Caleb Williams in college football. Whether he plays the bowl game is probably up in question. He probably won't. If I had to guess, I wouldn't, especially if I'm touted to be the number 1 overall pick. I like for USC to go out with a bang here. I like Caleb Williams to go out with a bang. UCLA is kind of struggling all across the board now. Even though they have a good defense, they're still giving up, almost over 20 points a game the last few weeks. Giving up, 36 to Oregon State, 42 to 27 to Arizona, 17 to Arizona State, and then in those games where they have trailed, they haven't really been able to score points. I mean, like I said, I think the Trojans take this one at home. I think Caleb Williams goes off on the right note, and we'll see what happens with UCLA's coaching search. Like I said in the intro, they're planning to part ways with Chip Kelly, and Chip Kelly could be looking to go out with a bang. Who knows? It could, like you said, it could go either way. But I'm taking the Trojans.
Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely understandable. I think this game really is a coin toss game, though. It literally could go either way. Yeah. I think it might be pretty low scoring too. But going into our next matchup, got a Big Ten matchup. Number 3 Michigan headed to Maryland. And this is a big game, too. I mean, I really don't think it's that sneaky, though. I do think I'm just going to give my pick away right away. I do think Michigan wins this game big. Obviously, Maryland has lost 4 of their last 5. They barely beat Nebraska last week. I'm pretty sure they beat them 13-10, if I'm correct. And last week, Michigan got it done. Everybody all year, and as much as I hate Michigan, everybody's been saying all year, Michigan hasn't been able to get it done against a good team. Last week, they won 24-15 at Beaver Stadium against Penn State. Literally did not pass the ball the whole second half. The last time they passed the ball was with 7 minutes to go of the second quarter. And that says enough in itself. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards got it done on the ground. And Michigan's defense is ranked number 1 nationally, allowing 7.5 points per game. I think Michigan wins. They might not even let Maryland score this game. I think Talia has a chance to potentially score, but I don't think Maryland gets into double digits this game.
I'm in a complete agreement with you. I don't think this game is close. I think Michigan has kind of enjoyed, especially since all the sign stealing stuff, all this entire ordeal. I think they have enjoyed embracing the villain role, as it's been touted. I don't think they're America's team, as Jim Harbaugh would suggest. But I do think the whole deal with Jim Harbaugh potentially being off the sidelines for a second straight game, for the second time he's been suspended this season, I think it gives Michigan a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, like it did last week. I think they're on a mission, and it's going to come down to Ohio State and Michigan next week, and we'll obviously pick that game, but Michigan goes in there and comes out unscathed. I mean, that's no only way to say it.
Or whatever you say. But now going into our next matchup, jumping into the SEC, got a primetime matchup. We got unranked Florida headed to number 9 Mizzou in Columbia, Missouri. Obviously, Mizzou, this game has New Year's Six implications for their bowl game.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mizzou's ranked 9th. They've got I think this is the best offense Mizzou has seen in years. Obviously, they have Luther Burden.
Best team in years.
Yeah, seriously. But, they have Luther Burden, top receiver in college football. I'd say probably top 10, maybe top 5 even. And then also you've got Brady Cook at quarterback, just great at football. And then also Cody Schrader, the running back, over 1,100 rushing yards, having a great year.
SEC in rushing.
Yeah, and they're 8-2. You look at Florida, 5-5. They've lost 3 straight. And 2 of those games, obviously, were home against Georgia and Arkansas, and then lost at LSU last week. But, This is another game where I don't think Florida. I think Florida could be a little sneaky in here, but I think second half Mizzou pulls away.
Yeah.
They're home. This is a huge game where they're trying to prove themselves to get a New Year's Six bowl game, which obviously they want. They probably will get. I think Mizzou wins this one big.
Yeah, this is a huge game for Billy Napier and his crew to try and see if they can get and pull off an upset and get a win. He's struggling right now. They're losing some recruiting battles right now. Whether Billy Napier survives the season or survives to make it the next season, we're not sure. Florida's a school that deserves to be at the top along with Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. But ever since the Dan Mullen era ended, they've been kind of in a downward spiral. I'm taking Mizzou here. I think it's close to begin with, but I think Mizzou pulls away, like you said. Mizzou has been shockingly good, very good this year. They're in the top 10, which is very surprising. Yeah, I like the Tigers to get it done at home. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably what's going to end up happening for sure. But jumping out of the SEC for a quick, brief moment, our fifth game of the day is we've got number 7 Texas headed to Iowa State in Ames, Iowa, and this game is very
Cyclone alert, baby.
This game is super sneaky for me. I mean, the Big 12 has been so competitive all year long. I think the Big 12 this year is looking how the Pac-12 typically looks, where they're the ones that tear each other's heads off, and they're the ones that ruin it for everybody else. And as of right now, you've got Texas 9-1, obviously the one loss to Oklahoma. Iowa State 6-4. 6-4, 5-2 in conference. They've won 4 of their last 5. Lost 2 weeks ago to Kansas by 7. And this is a super interesting game because Texas, the last 2 games they've won by 3. And Quinn Ewers obviously was back last week, threw for little over 300 yards and a touchdown. But you got to think they beat TCU by 3. TCU is not a great football team. And they let TCU score 20 points in the fourth quarter alone, which is the big thing for me. Texas has yet to, other than the Bama game, they have yet to play a game all 4 quarters. Yeah. They have struggled so much at just being consistent throughout the course of the ball game. And that's where it comes down to me for Iowa State here, because Iowa State has a great offensive line. They've been able to get it done on the ground. In 4 of their last 5 games, they've rushed for over 150 rushing yards. And Texas does have a great defensive line, but this is going to be really interesting to see. The only way that Iowa State wins this game is if their offense can get it done, if they can continue to get it done on the ground, which I think they can. I think Iowa State comes up big at home, taking down number 7 Texas, giving them their second loss on the year. And
I was kind of hoping you'd pick Texas because I didn't want it to be both of us Iowa State because I'm giving away my pick. As a Bama fan, I need Texas to drop another game. What would come down to me is Texas lost their leading rusher, Jonathan Brooks, this season, ACL. That could play into that. They have the freshman Cedric Baxter, who's pretty good. I don't know, man. I want Iowa State to win this game. And so I'm taking the Cyclones. I need Texas to drop a game, so I'm taking the Cyclones.
I mean, hey, that's how it's got to be. But going into our 6th matchup, arguably the best matchup of this week's slate.
I don't know. The next game might be better.
I don't think it is. I think this is why we saved it for number 6. But you've got number 1 Georgia headed to Neyland Stadium taking on number 18 Tennessee. This is a huge game. I mean, obviously, last week, Georgia got it done against number 9 Ole Miss, winning 52-17. Obviously, clinched the SEC East. It's already going to be Georgia-Bama in the SEC Championship. We already discussed that. But you got to think, this is a big game for Tennessee as well. Tennessee's 7-3, 3-3 in conference. Obviously, not going to make the SEC Conference Championship game, but this is a big game for them to potentially get a bigger bowl game, which obviously they want. They're ranked 18th. They had their 3rd loss of the season to Mizzou last week, losing 36-7. But the big thing for me in this game is that Tennessee's home. That's the big thing. Georgia has had 2 away games this year. Those 2 away games were at Auburn and they were at Vanderbilt. And you can say what you want about those games. Vanderbilt kind of hung in with Georgia a little bit. I think that Georgia should have won that game at Vanderbilt by a lot more than they did. And then obviously at Jordan-Hare against Auburn, they won 27-20. And I mean, you can say what you want about Jordan-Hare. You always say that Jordan-Hare has that voodoo crap that goes on.
I mean, you're right.
And it does. And I don't think that Neyland necessarily has that effect. But you look at and obviously Tennessee last year had that 1 week where they were ranked number 1, went to Athens and got blown out of the water by Georgia.
After they beat Bama.
But this is going to be a hostile environment for Georgia, and you know it. This is their third away game. They haven't been in an environment like this quite yet. Obviously, they're at Auburn, but I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be closer than people are expecting. I think that this could come down to a field goal or a touchdown late, but besides that point, I think Georgia's defense still is too dominant, and I think Carson Beck gets it done. I think Georgia wins by maybe a touchdown, maybe 3 points, but it's going to be close.
The big thing for me is Georgia's offensive line, man. They dominated last week. They did whatever they could with Ole Miss's front. Ole Miss did not touch Carson Beck all night. They never once, I don't think, ever got to him, put any pressure on him. Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers being back on the same field together for the first time this season, you saw what that did. I mean, Dejon Edwards and Kendall Milton. While they're going into a hostile environment, man, I don't see Georgia slipping up. I think Tennessee's kind of taking a little bit of a skid. They're not as talented as they were last year. I mean, when they beat Bama, I mean, this could be a hostile environment. And I know at the beginning of the season, I said this is where Georgia would slip up, but I'm changing that pick. Georgia still goes in there and comes out by double digits, in my opinion.
All right, that's your opinion, but coming down to the last game of this week's slate, 7th game, you've got a big Pac-12 matchup here with potential Pac-12 conference championship implications that could screw with Washington this game. You got number 5 Washington headed to Corvallis, Oregon, playing number 11 Oregon State. Obviously, Washington's 10-0, but within their last couple of games, every opponent that Washington has faced has been within reach. It's like Washington hasn't won by double digits. It hasn't been crazy big blowout games. And I think that's partly credit to, I really don't know what to give it credit to. Obviously, the Pac-12 always tears each other apart.
Yeah.
But Oregon State going into this game is 8-2, 5-2 in conference. They have 2 losses to Arizona and Washington State, and both of those losses they lost by 3. So got to take into effect, they have 2 losses. Both those losses were very close. They weren't able to get it done. DJU is doing great. Obviously, he wasn't the problem at Clemson. But the thing about this game, too, is Washington is 2.5-point favorites, and they're going on the road. This is another game where it could be a little bit of a hostile environment. And the thing that saved Washington the last couple of weeks is Dylan Johnson. Dylan Johnson has been getting it done on the ground, another running back that's been doing great. 2 weeks ago against USC, he rushed for 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. Last week against Utah, he rushed for like 100-something yards and a touchdown. Did a great job. Was able to get it done. When Michael Penix can't get it done, Dylan Johnson gets it done.
Yeah.
And, oh, man, at this point, I still really don't even know who to pick because I want Oregon State to just pull off the upset, but I think Washington gets it done on the road. They get the win, and it's going to be close, though.
I don't know where you saw the spread at, but on ESPN it has Oregon State as favored by 2.5.
Oh, seriously?
And so I like this is a toss-up game. Washington has not been the dominant team that they've been, or this Washington hasn't been a dominant team that we all thought they were the last few weeks. They struggled at home against Arizona State. They struggled a little bit against Stanford, but still came out with a 42-33 win. They let USC at one point led in that game, but they still won by 10. And then Utah just couldn't get it done. A 7-point game there, but they still have the win over Oregon at home. But they're going on the road to the Oregon State Beavers, who have been phenomenal this season. DJU has been awesome. I got the Bees at home upsetting the Washington Huskies. Another domino to fall for if Bama wins out. and beats Georgia in the SEC championship game. I'm probably talking a bunch of baloney. Probably won't. Bama still got to beat Georgia. They got to beat Auburn next week. But I got the Beavs getting the upset at home this week.
All right, whatever you say. I mean, and I really wanted to pick Oregon State, but I feel like they're just going to slip up. DJU is going to throw a crucial interception or something like that.
He's only got 4 picks. He
Yeah,
hasn't
I
been
know he only
turning
has
over
4
the ball
picks.
that much.
You got to think about the fact, though, too, Michael Penix has
Penix has more picks than him.
Okay, he's been lighting it up, and you got to think Michael Penix has only been sacked 6 times this year. And I don't think Oregon State can get the pressure that they need to Michael Penix to be able to slow him down at all, which
Go Beavs.
we'll see. But, I mean, that's going to close it out for this week's particular segment.
Go Cyclones and go Beavs. I'm your biggest fan this weekend.
We'll see what I mean, I'm a fan of the Cyclones this weekend for sure, but I think Washington is just yes, they've been having really close games, but I still think they're able to close it out and make their case for that Pac-12 champion potential.
Next week is rivalry weekend. You got some of the best rivalries in sports coming along. You got the best one in the Iron Bowl next week.
This man was texting me that.
I'll be at the Iron Bowl. It's going to be an electric atmosphere, but that's next week. But, I mean, I cannot wait for next week's slate. It's going to be
And obviously Ohio State going to TCUN, not TTUN anymore. It's TCUN now. Those cheaters up north, not that team up north. But another big game, but we'll get to that next week. Obviously, we thank you for tuning in to episode 33. If you haven't already, hit that like button, comment below, subscribe. Just give us any feedback that you guys want to give us. And we have some big things in store coming up. Black Friday's coming up. We got some big things in store for our podcast. Can't thank our sponsors enough in 251 Poolworks and Now Fitness for contributing to our show and just helping us be able to get done what we're able to get done for y'all. So we can't appreciate it enough. Thank you for tuning in.
And we'll see you next week.